One second the cheerleaders were cheering happily, the next they were suddenly decapitated by a passing truck. In 2025, the film The Monkey, directed by James Wan and adapted from Stephen King's horror novel, officially premieres. A mysterious toy monkey. Every time it beats its little drum, someone dies in a strange and sudden accident. If it keeps drumming, the consequences escalate. Mountains collapse, houses explode, even airplanes fall from the sky. The story begins with a man covered in blood walking into an antique shop carrying a drum-playing toy monkey. He wants to pawn the monkey, but the shop just happens to not accept children's toys. One of the monkey's arms is stuck in the air. The shop owner thinks it's broken. Shelburne quickly warns, "You do not want that monkey's arm to come down. If it does, something terrible will happen." Of course, the owner doesn't believe him. But the next moment, the monkey starts playing its own music. As the shopkeeper stares in confusion, Shelburne backs away in fear. Once the monkey's music ends, a rat scurries into the shop, chews through a safety line, triggering a harpoon to shoot straight into the owner's stomach and then yank back, pulling out his intestines. Yet another victim became a sacrifice to the toy monkey. Shelburne tries to destroy the toy with a flamethrower, but no matter how many times it burns, the melted monkey always comes back whole. After Shelburne's death, his wife Lois is left to raise their twin sons, Hal and Bill. Bill constantly bullies Hal, and Hal begins to daydream about killing his brother. After moving into a new house, Hal finds the monkey inside a gift box. On the back of the box, it says, "Turn the key and see what happens." Hal warns Bill not to touch it, but Bill insists on giving it a spin. The monkey grins, lifts its hand high, then stops moving altogether. Bill assumes it's broken and tosses it to Hal. No one expected the monkey's curse to be delayed. The next day, their mom had a date, so she asked the babysitter Annie to take the kids out. But the toy monkey joins them in the car. Annie took her kids to a Japanese restaurant for teppanyaki. The fried rice chef, trying to impress her, even made a star out of an egg. Just as Annie and the chef were flirting, the toy monkey in the car suddenly started banging its drum. Just as the music ends, the chef finishes his flashy routine, raising a sharp knife. Then, an invisible blade suddenly slashed across Annie's neck. After Annie's funeral, life seems to return to normal. But when Hal comes home from school, he finds the monkey sitting on his bed. He assumes his mom placed it there, but she says she hasn't been in their room in ages. Could the monkey move on its own? That night, unable to sleep, Hal speaks to the monkey.
"You didn't have anything to do with my babysitter's head, right?"
Bill overhears and proposes a deal. If Hal repeats everything he says, he'll let him keep the monkey.
"I want to suck its banana." "No, Bill, no." "Say it or I'll eat the rest of your placenta." "I want to suck its banana." "All right, we have a deal. You can have the monkey."
But the next day at school, Bill tells everyone that Hal said he wanted to eat bananas. He and his friends show up with bananas and mock Hal relentlessly. Humiliated and covered in bananas, Hal rushed home, only to find that monkey on his bed. He marches up to it and yells, "Let my brother die!" Then he turns the key. The monkey starts drumming. But when the music stops, it isn't Bill who dies. It's their mother. At that moment, Bill walks in, just in time to witness the horrifying scene. Blood trickles from their mother's temple before she collapses to the floor. Doctors determined that an aneurysm in her brain had suddenly burst. After the funeral, the brothers are taken in by Uncle Chip. On their last night in the old house, Hal can't sleep. He's convinced that Annie and their mom were killed by the monkey. So he heads to the basement and hacks the monkey to pieces. He thinks it's just a toy, but black liquid oozes out of its severed arms. He slices the monkey into bits and throws the remains into the trash. The next day, the twins move with Uncle Chip and Aunt Ida to the town of Casco. But that night, the monkey returns, fully restored, sitting right beside them.
"I'm telling you, Bill, it's a bad monkey. It's a bad magic killer monkey." "You think it killed babysitter Annie?" "Maybe. Probably. I don't know."
Their mother's death sends Bill into deep grief. He becomes obsessed with revenge and wants to turn the key again, to kill the murderer. But this time, the victim is Uncle Chip. While camping in the woods, he's suddenly trampled to death by a stampede of zebras. Now the brothers finally understand. The monkey only kills the people they love. To prevent more deaths, they throw the monkey into a deep well. A full 25 years had passed, and not a single strange death had occurred. Until one night, when Ida was suddenly awakened by an eerie tune in her sleep. It was the familiar sound the toy monkey made after its key was turned. Gun in hand, she searched the house, following the sound to the basement, only to find nothing. Just as she was about to leave, the wooden stairs suddenly gave way and she fell into a box filled with fishing hooks. After painfully pulling the hooks from her face, she noticed the smell of gas leaking from the kitchen. When she leaned in to check, the stove burst into flames, setting her hair on fire. As she fled in agony, the flames scorched her eyes, and she ran headfirst into a sign, dying instantly. Time flew by, and the two brothers from back then had grown into middle age. Hal got married and had a son named Petey, but childhood trauma left him incapable of handling family life, eventually leading to divorce. Even worse, his ex-wife had started a new family, and they decided to keep Petey with them, meaning Hal was about to lose his son forever. His ex-wife agreed to let them spend just one last night together. Meanwhile, at an estate auction for Ida's belongings, a man stumbled upon the very toy monkey that was supposed to be lost at the bottom of the well. Drawn in by its eyes, eerily resembling his late father's, he took it home. Hal and Petey checked into a cheap roadside motel, cherishing what could be their final night together. Petey wanted to build a family tree and kept asking Hal about their relatives. When he asked if Hal had any siblings, Hal chose to hide the fact that he had a brother. That night, Hal had a disturbing dream. He was pulled from his bed by a giant monkey and thrown into the same well from his childhood. He kept falling, deeper and deeper, until he entered a kaleidoscopic world. At the very bottom of the well, a monkey in a suit appeared, wielding a knife and attacking him, startling Hal awake. The next day, Hal received word that Aunt Ida had died, and he brought Petey back to his uncle's house in Casco. There, he met a real estate agent named Barbara.
Your brother Bill Shelbourne said you'd be coming?
Oh, yeah, right. Hi, Barbara.
It was only then that Petey discovered he had an uncle. Barbara explained that ever since Ida died, strange deaths had been happening around the neighborhood, one every day. On Tuesday, a neighbor was killed by a lawnmower. On Wednesday, another was scalded to death by hot coffee. On Thursday, someone was bitten by a snake that leapt out of a golf hole. And several more neighbors had died in similarly bizarre ways. Hal asked Barbara to help him check every closet in the house. He wanted to find the toy monkey, but when Barbara opened the last closet, a trap was triggered and a falling shotgun blew her to pieces. It became a criminal case. Though Hal and his son were cleared of suspicion, they weren't allowed to leave town until Barbara's death was fully investigated. Later, the phone rang inside the house. Hal picked up and heard a voice he hadn't heard in 5 years. It was his brother Bill. The first thing Bill asked was whether Hal had seen the monkey. Hal searched every corner of the house but found no trace of it. When Bill heard this, he immediately hung up. Hal flipped through his phone book to call back, but couldn't find Bill's number anywhere. Instead, he found a strange listing under the name Mrs. Monkey. He tried calling it, and sure enough, it was a recorded message from Bill. In the recording, Bill claimed he had found the monkey. That's when it hit Hal. These recent strange deaths in town were probably caused by Bill using the monkey. Flashback to 25 years ago, the day the brothers threw the monkey into the well. As the toy slipped from Bill's hands, he suddenly realized it was Hal who had turned the key, and that's what killed their mother. Later, when Bill was alone, he returned to the well looking for the monkey, but it was gone. Only the key remained on the ground. Since then, he'd been haunted by visions, seeing the monkey appear before him over and over. Eventually, realizing the monkey might be back in the world, Bill bought it from Ricky for just $15. Since then, Bill had been turning the key again and again, trying to kill Hal to avenge their mother. But all he did was cause the deaths of innocent people. Then, Ricky suddenly regretted selling it. He went back to Bill trying to reclaim the toy monkey, but was met with refusal.
So can I have it back?
Never.
Hal returned to the motel with Petey. The first thing he did was call Bill, begging him to stop turning the key. The people who had died were innocent. If he kept this up, He'd put Petey's life in danger too, but Bill told him to bring Petey to see him and let Petey turn the key. Because, according to Bill, the one who turns the key doesn't die.
You've known that since we were kids, haven't you, Hal?
At that point, Bill was already hinting. He knew it was Hal who had killed their mother. Not long after Bill hung up the phone, another uninvited guest showed up at the door.
Open up, police!
It was Ricky, disguised as a police officer. He had uncovered the secret of the toy monkey and originally wanted to get it back from Bill, but when that failed, he came up with another plan. He decided to use Hal and his son Petey as hostages to force an exchange. Under Ricky's direction, they arrived at Bill's hideout. It was an abandoned hotel. Ricky held them at gunpoint and forced Petey to crawl through a dog tunnel to retrieve the monkey from Bill. Before he went in, Hal warned his son, "No matter what happens, don't turn the key on the monkey's back." Inside the decaying hotel, traps had been set everywhere. Petey was nearly sliced by a falling axe. He cautiously made his way to Uncle Bill, who sat across from the monkey, mumbling about finding the right target. Trying to appear calm, Bill handed the monkey to Petey and said it was just a toy, then encouraged him to turn the key. With Bill's coaxing, Petey finally did it. The toy monkey opened its mouth and raised its hands. At that exact moment, outside, Ricky felt an itch on his head. He scratched it with the barrel of his gun, but it went off, the bullet piercing the windshield and striking a nearby beehive in a tree. As the monkey began beating its drum, playing its eerie tune, a swarm of hornets burst from the hive. They flew straight through the bullet hole in the glass into Ricky's mouth. With Ricky dead, Hal began searching for his son.
Fuck. Dad, Petey!
When Bill realized Hal was still alive, he shouted for Petey to turn the key again. When Petey refused, Bill snatched the monkey from him and slapped him to the ground. Bill turned the key, but the monkey's raised arms refused to come down. Impatient, he tried to force the toy to drum manually, only to discover the monkey's strength outmatched his own. It flung him across the room. Then the monkey started drumming on its own, faster and faster. Screams rang out all around them. Peering through a crack, Bill saw every house nearby engulfed in flames. Even a passing airplane fell straight from the sky. In seconds, the whole area was consumed by fire. Hal finally found Bill.
You were really trying to kill me, weren't you? Of course I was. That's what all this carnage was for. Could have killed Petey, could have killed my son. For what? Why? Because you killed my mom.
He apologized, confessing that it had been him. He was the one who turned the key all those years ago and caused their mother's death. He explained that he was just a kid at the time and he was simply too angry. He had no idea what the consequences would be. He never wanted their mother to die. For decades, he carried that guilt in silence. It ate away at him. It was his punishment. He said, "We lost our mom and dad, but we're still here. We're brothers. We can still be there for each other." Hal's words finally broke through to Bill. The brothers shook hands, finally reconciling. They thought it was the beginning of something new, a chance to finally lean on each other, to heal. But the very next second, one of Bill's traps was triggered. A giant bowling ball dropped from above and crushed his head against the wall, splattering blood everywhere. His skull was destroyed beyond recognition. Even though his brother had died, Hal didn't grieve. Their bond had faded long ago. He took his son and prepared to leave. While waiting at a red light, he saw a pale-faced man riding a horse pass by, black smoke curling up around his body. He knew instantly. This had to be the horseman of death from the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Both Hal and Petey saw him. After they nodded to each other in silent acknowledgement, the rider quietly rode away. Hal's face shifted from fear to calm. Then, he smiled. He seemed to understand something. Perhaps he realized that death is inevitable, and instead of fearing it, one should embrace life while they can. So, he decided to take his son dancing. As their car disappeared into the distance, a school bus filled with cheerleaders passed by. They laughed and cheered, bursting with joy. In a horrifying turn of events, the cheerleaders leaning out of the windows are suddenly decapitated by a passing truck.